Question number one is, how can teachers help students identify biases, stereotypes, and omissions in literature, media, and curriculum? And according to our readings, the one by Lynn Lakin Rice, it gives us two strategies. Number one is having parental involvement as guest speakers to include it into our curriculum. For example, right now in my classroom, we are reading Refugee by Alan Gratz, and my plan is to have a video of my dad speaking about his experience of leaving his home country, which is Laos, and immigrating to the United States. And he stayed in a refugee camp in Thailand. And so we want to be including different I guess just perspectives and voices from people that we know and people that our students can relate to, and understanding that there are biases in different just like books and curriculum and writings, and we just want to include a different voice into the classroom. And so I feel like that's a really good way to do that. And then secondly, they also talk about how in order to diminish those biases, we can create opportunities for role playing based on situations in the classroom or what we read about in our books. And so, even like reading a synopsis of the book, the students can come together and make a skit of maybe like a chapter or a summary, a discussion between two characters. I feel like that would be very creative, and just helping to identify maybe stereotypes that occur in the books. The second question is, why is fair-minded critical thinking necessary in multicultural teaching? I think a big part of that question is that word fair-minded thinking. I think teachers really need to see that they need to give all of our students an equal opportunity in education. One example is that I have a teacher friend who told me that he has witnessed in the cafeteria how the teachers treat certain students differently based off of their ethnicity and how they look. For example, when the students come up in the cafeteria, they need to sign out on a sheet in order to use the bathroom. And so if a student came up and they were dressed nice and they said, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, and they were white, then the teacher would basically give them the time and they would say, here's the time, yes, you can use the bathroom. But if a student came up and asked the teacher if they could use the bathroom and they would ask what time it was, the teacher would respond by saying, there's a clock over there, you can find out yourself what the time is. And they would just be very rude to the student. And so just that one little window in seeing how the teachers treat certain students based off of their ethnicity and how they look and how they dress, I think that really goes to show maybe what those opportunities are for the students in the classroom of maybe helping the students, just being someone that the student can come to for help and can ask for advice about, and can even grow in their love for the content or the academic. I think that it's a scary thing to see that and to know that, and how the achievement gap between different cultures, how there's such a wide and big achievement gap. Perhaps a big part of that is because teachers need to have fair-minded critical thinking in multicultural teaching. Even so, in the Lynn Lakin Rice article, they talk about how teachers need to develop a deeper understanding of themselves and their practices through the process of reflection. We need to maybe even look at our own teachings and reflect upon how we as teachers are influencing our students and how we are making an impact on them, and maybe even how we can include different cultures and different perspectives into our curriculum. In the article Curriculum on the Border Zone by Diane Kern, she talks about how we should recognize the politics of emotions that energize behaviors, and how teachers need to use their intellect and reflective capabilities in the way that we analyze different problems in the classroom and how we can solve those problems. in order to address the issue that is occurring. And so it's really important that teachers take time to reflect upon their teaching and to really just analyze how we can help our students to grow. And maybe a big part of that is knowing that maybe we have our own biases and we have our own way of treating certain students a certain way. Even I have that bias of like just feeling like in my advanced class, I create deeper questions and I make just more complex activities and handouts for those advanced students because I have those high expectations on them. But for my co-teaching classes where I have ELL and I have IEP students, I sort of almost lower my expectations for them. And I think this is something that I really need to reflect upon and just to measure the expectations equally among both classes, and to work within the students that do need that extra help. And Bennett, he talked about how culturally responsive teaching requires teachers to create learning communities that are socially, culturally, and linguistically meaningful for all the learners in the classroom. And so I think just ultimately making a classroom that the students are going to want to be in and that the students can relate to and that the students can include their interests, that has their interests in there. I think that is a big part of just breaking down that achievement gap. I know that I have a teacher friend, she's been teaching for a very long time, and she has two kids. And so she talks about how when she teaches, it's not about, she doesn't really care about the students and she doesn't talk to them about their lives. She just goes into the content and that's it. But yet, when we're in the lunchroom, she talks about how the students never call her their favorite teacher, they don't share anything with her. And I think that we need to just make our mindset, just understand that teaching isn't just about the content, but it's about knowing our students, building relationships with them, and not stereotyping them at all. In one of the article, it talks about how there is, in the biology books that they read, it discusses terminologies that show that certain races are actually better than others intellectually because of their genetic makeup, and how a lot of people believe that because of the terminology that the books use. And so I think there's just so much pressure on the whiteness community that they are the better race, but that we teachers, we need to see beyond that and we need to empower all of our students, whether they are white, black, Asian, Hispanic, it doesn't matter what culture they are, that we just need to empower and have those higher expectations for them. Okay, so I hope this answers the question, and that's it.